not easy times for many people at work, and one of the more difficult parts of that is coaching someone when their performance is not up to what the company thinks it should be. So what this speech is about is that process, and that is coaching a person whose performance is not really adequate. There's a number of parts to this. This is a 4-minute speech to start with, and I'll do a 1-minute introduction to a role play, which Greg Henning will help me with, and we'll do the role play, and then we'll discuss with you how that role play went. One of the most important things about any coaching session is to try as hard as possible to keep the emotion out of it. Now, as you can imagine, that's not an easy thing to do. I mean, if you were going into a coaching session with your supervisor regarding parts of your performance that were not up to par tomorrow, how would you sleep tonight? That's one of the things that people don't realize about the process is the person that's being coached frequently thinks that they are the person that has absolutely no power. That is the furthest possible thing from the truth. Because the coaching person or the supervisor is also ranked on the performance of the person that they are coaching. If that person's performance is good, it's great. If it's not so great. I spent many, many years working for IBM, Sun Microsystems, and others as a sales rep or an account manager, and went through many of these sessions, and the way they were handled was frequently very interesting. Sometimes they were handled with grace, and sometimes they were not. Sometimes they were bombastic, and sometimes they were not. And the way in which you think that's going to be as an employee, or even as a manager, says a great deal about how you're going to approach it and what you can actually learn about your performance. Because if you approach it with your emotions this high, and you're talking to a bombastic manager, no matter what you and that manager discuss, you're really not going to learn a whole lot. You're going to come in with trying to cover yourself as much as possible. You're going to come in fearful, and you're going to go out, no matter what is said in the conversation, learning nothing. So people learn what is expected. They need to understand their current level and where they're supposed to perform. In many jobs, such as sales, and we're going to do a sales role play, this is easy. There's a quota, and that's what you're supposed to sell. However, in many other positions, it's not so easy. And one of the very difficult parts of being a manager is to help the person that you're coaching to understand exactly where their performance should be. Usually, people do not perform well for a number of reasons. One of them is poor training. A number of times I've seen an excellent salesman put into a managerial position over other sales reps with absolutely no training as legend. And how do they then perform? Well, you can make that decision for yourself. But frequently, it's abysmal. And they don't know that. Secondly, inadequate equipment. It's difficult to do your job if you don't have the proper equipment to do so. There's many ways of looking at that. If you don't have in this world the right telephone, if you don't have the right PC, if you don't have the right software, it's not easy to perform the task. Thirdly, time. Do you have adequate time to do what you need to do? As far as a sales job, the number of times I've seen a salesperson go into a position with a quarterly quota to start with, which was unreasonable, is again legend. Now, this is the quota you're supposed to get, regardless of what the territory is, regardless of what the possibilities are, and regardless of how many relationships you have to start with. When I joined IBM, it took me a year to establish any kind of relationships in my territory at all. And from that point on, it was a little different. In fact, it was fairly successful, but it still took that year. And then motivation. Are you appreciated? Are you listened to? That's interesting. I'm not sure the lights appreciate that. But the listening is critical. When you go into your manager's office, do you have a time to do that? Is your manager approachable? Will your manager shut down the telephone, stop looking at the iMessages, stop looking at the email, and listen to what you have to say? And for all managers, that's critically important because, quite frankly, my last manager didn't do that. He was addicted to iMessages. He'd look at me for about 5 seconds, and then this would be the way that the conversation went. So listening is just absolutely critical from any kind of perspective. So thirdly, what is the specific difference between what your performance is and what is satisfactory? In other words, if that's what you're supposed to perform at, what is the difference and how can you change it? And again, how does that performance affect others? That's also important and needs to be discussed during the appointment for coaching. The only question really that you come into in a coaching exercise that really you can't discuss is, could the person do the job if he wanted to do it? In other words, could the person that you've hired have the resources to do the job? Frequently, people are let go, and they are not so much let go, but they should never have been hired for the position in the first place. And that's a matter of interviewing, of establishing the goals from a managerial viewpoint that you need to have, and of hiring the right person. And if you let a person go for that reason, then the company has failed, not the person. And that frequently happens. I've seen it happen many times. So at this point, Greg's going to come up and we're going to play a role play for a few minutes. What we're going to play is, Greg is a salesperson that sells into a territory, and he sells large accounts, personal computers. Not so much one-on-one, but tens or hundreds of computers to large accounts. Greg's sales are down a little bit, and I'm the manager that's supposed to coach him and help him get those sales up. Now, part of what I should be doing in doing that is, first of all, I should be acknowledging and listening to Greg. Secondly, I should specifically talk to him about what is expected and what's not happening. And thirdly, we need together to discuss solutions, agree on a solution and the actions to take to make that solution happen, and what the follow-up is. And all the way along, my job is to be, under the circumstances, as positive as possible, and my job is also to listen. At this point, I'll introduce you to Mr. Greg Henning.